prove that anyway. So
No, I think
I
you're right.
doubt. But I would hate to see that team move. I mean, seriously, I would hate to see them move at all because
Well, I won't
they're
give you crap for being a Red Sox fan then, but I will give you some crap if you keep calling me Mr. Donovan. I feel like I have to give you in-school suspension. You can just call me Pat.
I will do that. I will do that. Okay. Um, so Pat, what is your take on? I think it was Joe Buck who mispronounced Brandon Lau's name at the All-Star game. How do you,
Yeah.
as a broadcaster, what was your kind of take on what he did?
Well, first of all, even though I try to make sure I know names, and like my wife will tell you, we could be at the supermarket, and if I don't know how to pronounce the name of the cashier, if I see the name on their name tag and I don't know how to pronounce it, I will ask them or I'll try it to see if I can get it right. That said, I still get names wrong all the time, and as a play-by-play guy, you do have, something in the booth with phonetic spellings where you could look that up, but there's a lot of guys named Lowe in pro sports and just in general, Rob Lowe even, right? There's a lot of guys named Lowe that spell their name that way. So whenever there's something that's consistently pronounced one way, I kind of don't get too angry at a guy for making that mistake because it's so easy to make. And it's easy for us because, you're in Tampa Bay and I cover the Rays and I'm a Rays fan and all that stuff. So we look at Brandon Lau every day and go, how the hell can you do that, Joe Buck? But when you've seen a million Lows, Mike Lowe, who's just with the Red Sox, all these different guys, it's an easy mistake to make. So I won't crush him for it.
All right. Okay. All right. So I know training camp is getting ready to start for the Buccaneers. Have you and Aaron talked about a prediction of what that would do this year?
I mean, not really. We like to at least get into the preseason before we start getting into record predictions and any of that stuff. Everybody likes doing it right after the draft when you really don't know what a team's going to look like, especially when you're talking about a team with a brand new coaching staff, right? Things are going to look, whether they're better or not, we don't know, but they're going to look a whole lot different this year under Bruce Arians offensively and under Todd Bowles defensively. Defensively, you're going to use a word with the Buccaneers this season that you haven't used in a long time, and that's the word attack. They're going to be an attacking defense, right? They may not have the best pass rushers off the edge, but they're going to get pressure. Right. That's what Todd Bowles does. And don't be surprised if a lot of that comes from up the middle with the two middle linebackers with Devin White and Levante David kicking inside in that 3-4 defense when they play a conventional 3-4 defense. They'll shift down and do some interesting stuff, but at the end of the day, it's going to be a completely different-looking football team. Even though the talent's not all that different, what they do offensively and defensively is going to be completely different than it was a year ago. And I'd be lying to you if I told you I knew what that was going to look like. So when I get a couple preseason games under my belt, when I look at what this offense is going to look like and a little bit what the defense is going to look like, because, again, all those exotic blitzes and things that Todd Bowles likes to do, he's not going to show you any of that in the preseason. But we'll get a look at a team that's in a 3-4 now more times than not than a 4-3. So they're going to look a lot different. So I think they still have a ways to go talent-wise. I love this coaching staff. And I think it's going to make a big difference. And this is a huge year for the Bucs and especially Jameis Winston.
I was going to say that's the question I had coming up is this the final year we see him in a Bucs uniform? Or do you think with Byron Leftwich being the offensive coordinator now, do you think he kind of, and Bruce and Arians being there as well, do you think that this is the year he finally breaks out and has it? I mean, not that I'm saying he's had a bad season in the past and he's had some rough times, but he has shown that he can be a great quarterback, but then he shows where he's made a lot of mistakes. But every quarterback does that. I mean,
listen, he's been up and down, right? There's no question about that. He's been up and down. At the end of the day, he and Marcus Mariota are the first two quarterbacks since the new CBA to play their fifth-year options, right? Most guys have either been let go because the teams knew they didn't need a fifth year to figure it out with that guy, or they've been extended before that fifth-year option kicked in. Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, the first two guys under this new CBA to play that fifth-year option. And what's that say about both those guys is that the teams aren't convinced yet, right? And if it's going to work for Jameis, it's going to work under Bruce Arians. Bruce Arians has been really successful with just about every quarterback that's worked under him. And Jameis Winston knows that Bruce Arians has a lot of belief in him as a quarterback. It's part of the reason Bruce Arians took this job. So I don't know that I would be willing to say this will be the last year unless it's just atrocious, unless he just goes out there and shows you that he's never going to get it. But if he takes a step forward under Bruce Arians and this offense starts to look a little bit more like what you think it needs to look like, and by the way, that attacking defense we were just talking about, that's going to make a difference too, because they'll turn the ball over. And while they'll give up some big plays, they'll also set Jameis up with a short field every now and then, and that's a nice thing to do for a quarterback that hasn't happened around here for a while. So when you get some short fields because the defense is turning the ball over to you and you can score quickly, all of a sudden your offensive numbers and your scoring and your wins go up rather quickly. So I think that's going to help Jameis Winston a lot, the fact that this defense will make plays for him and put him on a short field. He's going to have every opportunity to get it under Bruce Arians, and now we're going to find out if he can. I think it's going to take more than a year. I don't think they move on from Jameis after this year. I wouldn't be surprised if he has a decent year, if they franchise tag him and try it for one more year under Bruce Arians, as opposed to give him that long-term deal, unless he takes a major step forward and they go, okay, here's the guy we thought he was. Let's move forward. This is our guy. Let's figure everything else out.
And I mean, and Pat, he has the weapons. I mean, Mike Evans is one of the best wide receivers in the league, in my opinion. And you know, obviously Deshaun Jackson didn't work out here. I mean, obviously that was I don't know if it was a mistake or if he just didn't fit here with. I mean, he gave Jameis a lot of crap. He'd rather work with Fitzpatrick, who's now with the Dolphins. So that was a smart move I think the Bucs did. I would love to see JPP play. I don't know if that's going to happen or not with that injury he had, the accident. That's going to be interesting. But if he can play, that definitely is going to help that defense out. I was one of the few people who was sad to see Gerald McCoy go. But I understand why they did it. And, they got Dominic Sue now to come in here and do what McCoy, I guess, couldn't do. So I guess we'll have to wait and see. I do like the attacking defense because when they won the Super Bowl in 2002, that's that defense did. I mean, you have Brooks and Sapp and Barber and everybody was flying, and Lynch, just to name a few guys on that defense. And the funny thing is, they haven't had that in a while. So if Todd Bowles, it takes him a year or 2 years to get that defense back, and you can have a decent offense, even decent, he doesn't have to be great, just decent, they'll be able to win more than 5 games like they've done the last 2 seasons. So I'm hoping that the Bucs can do that this year, win more than 5.
Yeah.
So I think
what it is it's probably the opposite though, right? It's probably that hopefully the defense is decent and that makes the offense explosive, because the offense is the one. You talked about the weapons that Jameis Winston has. I think Chris Godwin with more consistent playing time, being that number 2 receiver on this football team now, is going to make him better. And he's going to have a good year. Obviously, we know about Mike Evans, probably the best 2 tight ends when you're talking about a 2 tight end set in football with O.J. Howard and Cam Brate. I think O.J. Howard, a lot of people forget because he missed the end of last season with injuries, but before he started picking those injuries up early in the season, that's when that offense was churning, and O.J. Howard looks like a Pro Bowl tight end. And when you have one of those guys, when you have a guy who's explosive and athletic and can do the things that O.J. Howard can do, that opens everything else up for guys like Mike Evans, for guys like Chris Godwin. That really opens up the field for everyone. So that's having O.J. back, having O.J. healthy is going to make a huge difference for this offense as well. So I think more than likely, if you're going to win, 7, 8, 9, 10 games, it's going to be because the offense is outstanding and the defense is kind of just good enough.
Just good enough. See, you're right, because it's the opposite of when they won the Super Bowl, because the reason that they won in 2002 is because of their defense. And I'm not giving Brad Johnson and Mike Allstott and those guys, I'm not giving them, not saying that they were awful and they were bad and the defense did everything. I'm not saying that. It's just back then with Monty Kiffin, it was the defense. That's what they were known for. That's how they won, and they got Super Bowl, and they beat the Raiders. But I mean, that was what they were known for. So it's kind of now roles are reversed here with this team. I think now it's like you said, it's going to be more offensive. Has to be the explosive unit. The defense just has to be decent. Just stop them enough. Maybe hold the team to 28 points, 21 points, and they'll give the offense a chance to win. I have to say I agree with you on that. I agree with you on
Yeah,
that.
that's the NFL today, right? That's the NFL.
Right.
It's do just enough defensively and score because the game's been opened up a lot offensively.
Correct. The next two questions I have had are about the Lightning, and I'm a huge Lightning fan. I have been. That's my favorite sports franchise of any sports franchise. I love the Lightning. What is your take? How will they? Will they? I guess the question is, will they rebound after what happened last year, being knocked out in the first round and swept in the first round by Columbus?
It's going to be a weird year. It's going to be a weird year because they're going to play really well. They're too talented not to, and they're probably going to be the best team in hockey. But all season long, it's not really going to matter because in the back of all of our minds, and really in the front of a lot of people's mouths, is going to be, but, because they were one of the best hockey teams in the regular season we've ever seen last year. But then the playoffs came, and they were a disaster, and they embarrassed themselves. And now they're the butt of the joke. And you know what? When you do that, you are the butt of the joke until you win. And at the end of the day, could this motivate them? Absolutely. This could be what gets them over the hump. We've seen Washington before they won their cup go through similar things with Alexander Ovechkin. All the things people will say about Steven Stamkos now. He's not a leader. He can't win in the playoffs. All the things they'll say about Nikita Kucherov. It's all the same things they were saying about Alexander Ovechkin. This is a hard league to win in. And sometimes, you come up out of nowhere like the St. Louis Blues do. But more times than not, it takes a couple years to kind of take these lumps and bumps to get over the hump. And it's hard to imagine them not using this as motivation. But is it enough? We don't really know. All we've seen from them so far in the playoffs is everybody I told that they were ridiculous for saying this team can't get it done. At the end of the day, they were right, and I was wrong. And now they're going to have to prove it. The Bolts are going to have to prove it before anyone believes in them again.
Yeah. Well, my follow-up question is this. Even though they signed him to a 4-year extension, if they don't get to the Stanley Cup Finals, is John Cooper fired?
Oh.
You there?
There we go. I lost you for a second.
The question was, if they don't make it to the Stanley Cup Finals, does John Cooper get the boot, even though I know they just extended his contract?
No, I don't think so. Not unless it's a disaster. It's something like what happened this year happened again. Then I think, that might be the case. But otherwise, listen, you don't get to a Stanley Cup Final on accident. You don't get to an Eastern Conference Finals on accident. They've done that, and what happened this year, we get it. It was awful. But prior to that, there's been too much success around here to pretend it's an accident. And I think it'd be a travesty to fire John Cooper. I really do.
I agree with you, Penn, on that. Again, like I said, I'm a huge Lightning fan, and I would hate to see him go because really, I guess the question comes up now: is he Tony Dungy? Like he can get them to the promised land, but he can't get them over the hump.
I hate all those comparisons because you know what? Tony Dungy went and won a Super Bowl in Indianapolis. People like to say that stuff, but at the end of the day, it's hyperbole that I don't really like to get into personally.
True. All right, one last question I have. So what made you become a sports broadcaster? Was there a particular moment when you were younger?
You know what? There was actually. Funny story. I chased my wife for 8 years, and when we started dating, we were dating for a little while, and then she kind of, knowing that I'd been chasing her for a long time and kind of wanted to marry her, she was like, "Look, I don't necessarily want to marry a career pizza delivery guy. So what's your plan?" And I was like, "What is my plan?" I didn't really have much of a plan. I was like 23. Thought about the fact that I love sports. I'm not athletic, or smart enough to be like a trainer or something like that around sports or a GM or anything like that. So I heard a commercial for Connecticut School of Broadcasting. I've had people tell me I have a good voice my whole life. I like to talk. I love sports. And the more I thought about it, it made sense. So I went to CSB. I went to the one up in Boston, actually. Interned for a radio station there. And then when I realized I wasn't going to get a job there, I moved to Tampa, where I interned for another radio station where I worked for a couple of years. And then I was in between gigs for a while, and then I've been with iHeart now for about 7.
Yeah, because like I said, Pat, I used to listen to you and Aaron on the weekends on Saturdays, and then It was sad to hear Big Dog pass away. I know he was a big part of